Jaya Radha-Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi-jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopi-jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Vraja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Vraja Janaranjana Yamuna Tiravanachari Yamuna Tiravanachari Jaya Radha-Madhava Kunja Vihari Gopi-jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Vraja Janaranjana Yamuna Tiravanachari Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare 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 Ram, Ram Rama, Hare 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 Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare 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 Ram, Ram Rama, Hare 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 Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare 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 Ram, Ram Rama, Hare 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 Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare 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 Ram, Ram Rama, Hare Hare Jaya Radhe-shyam, 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 Jaya Radhe-shyam. Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Srila Prabhupada. Shri Radha Sundra ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Gaura Bhaktavinda ki jai. Hare Krishna, dear devotees. I will speak in English today. Gopaldev Prabhu gave me permission for that. And today we are, because it's Thursday, we are studying the verses from the 7th canto, 11th chapter, verses from 8 to 12. And today's quality is mind control. I'm a little bit nervous because I haven't done the service for a long time, and also for a long time I haven't been in the association of yours in this kind of setting, but I'm trying to exercise mind control, so hopefully it will come out in a pleasing way for Radha-dhama Sundara, Srila Prabhupada, and all of you gathered. Let's chant the first part, the first verse. Satyam dayata paksocham, Satyam dayata paksocham, Titiksha shashamodamaha, Titishiksha shamodamaha, Ahimsa brahmacharyam cha, Tyagasvadhyayam arjavam, Tyagasvadhyaya arjavam. Devotees? Satyam dayata pakshaucham, Titikshesha shamodamaha, Ahimsa brahmacharyam cha, Tyagasvadhyayam arjavam. Satyam dayata pakshaucham, Titikshesha shamodamaha, Ahimsa brahmacharyam cha, Tyagasvadhyayam arjavam. Ladies? Satyam dayata pakshaucham, Titishiksha shamodamaha, Ahimsa brahmacharyam cha, Tyagasvadhyaya arjavam. Satyam dayata pakshaucham, Titishiksha damodamaha, Ahimsa brahmacharyam cha, Tyagasvadhyayam arjavam. Thank you. I will read the translation of all the verses from 8 to 12. These are the great principles to be followed by all human beings: truthfulness, mercy, austerity, observing fasts on certain days of the month, bathing twice a day, tolerance, discrimination between right and wrong, control of the mind, control of the senses, non-violence, celibacy, charity, reading of scripture, simplicity, satisfaction, rendering service to saintly persons, gradually taking leave of unnecessary engagements, observing the futility of the unnecessary activities of human society, remaining silent and grave, and avoiding unnecessary talk, considering whether one is the body or the soul, distributing food equally to all living entities, both men and animals, seeing every soul, especially in the human form, as a part of the Supreme Lord, hearing about the activities and instructions given by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the shelter of the saintly persons, chanting about his activities and instructions, always remembering these activities and instructions, trying to render service, performing worship, offering obeisances, becoming a servant, becoming a friend, and surrendering one's whole self. O King Yudhishthira, these 30 qualifications must be acquired in the human form of life. Simply by acquiring these qualifications, one can satisfy the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Shri Lakshmi Simhadev ki jai. Om Gyana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmiritam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Sarasvati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. It's so wonderful just to read the verse and get so uplifted by the mentioning of this exalted qualities, and so aspiration as well, because when we just hear about them, one just develops desire to develop some of those qualities. So let us look at the control of the mind, and I'm really grateful to Gopaldev Prabhu. He gave me this opportunity to contemplate this topic. Because for me the idea of giving lecture is to get opportunity to think about some subject in a deeper way, and being forced to come up with some realizations that could be shared with devotees. So I'm grateful for this opportunity. When it comes to mind control, it's definitely one of the main topics that Srila Prabhupada touches a lot upon in his purports. There is no lack of mentioning of the subject, and therefore it's one of those things in Krishna consciousness which is very simple, and he gives us formula we will talk about now. Simple doesn't mean easy, so the idea might be simple, but the practice may not be so easy. But let's look at the formula first. Krishna gives it quite early in Bhagavad Gita, in the third chapter, Karma Yoga. In the end of the chapter, when Arjuna inquires from him on how one can avoid acting sinfully. And Krishna explains that the cause of sinful activities is lust. So all our sinful desires in the heart, they make us act in a sinful way. And Krishna explains how to deal with lust. And basically that's the formula for the mind control. It's 3:41:43. I just want to read the verses. Okay. So 3:41. Therefore, O Arjuna, best of the Bharatas, in the very beginning, curb this great symbol of sin, lust, by regulating the senses, and slay this destroyer of knowledge and self-realization. So this is the first part of mind control, which starts with regulating the senses. Next verse, 42. The working senses are superior to dull matter. Mind is greater than the senses. Intelligence is still higher than the mind. And he, the soul, is even greater than the intelligence. Here, Krishna talks about different components of consciousness. He touches upon actually something which doesn't have consciousness, the dull matter. Then he talks about the mind, and then he talks about then he talks about the senses, then he talks about the mind, then intelligence, and then the true identity of a living being as a spirit soul. And he explains how these things are actually, it's a progression, a rather hierarchy. He explains how the dull matter is the lowest level of all, and then the senses are higher, the mind governs the senses, intelligence governs the mind, and then the realization of oneself as a spirit soul governs it all. In the next verse, the final verse of the third chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna says, Thus, knowing oneself to be transcendental of the material senses, mind and intelligence, O Marty-armed Arjuna, one should steady the mind by deliberate spiritual intelligence, Krishna consciousness, and thus, by spiritual strength, conquer this insatiable enemy known as lust. So here, the Lord mentions the other aspect of mind control, which is the strong intelligence. And here it's said deliberate spiritual intelligence. So deliberate means very intentional. It's something we make conscious choice to do it. So it's not just some occasionally, spontaneously, now and then. So it's a mature decision to engage in Krishna consciousness. And this deliberate spiritual intelligence, Srila Prabhupada calls it Krishna consciousness. This is something which keeps us control the mind. So let's look in detail how this formula works. You can think of it as a pliers. In Hungarian, it's harapafogo. So, like if, for instance, you put the nail, you put the nail in the wrong place and you want to take it out. So you use harapafogo, the pliers, and from two sides you squeeze it and then you pull it out. So this exact way, the mind control works. When from the one side we regulate our senses, and from the other side we strengthen our intelligence. And this keeps our mind in a very narrow field, because usually the mind is very broad, almost unlimited in the direction it can go, in the distance it can travel, and the depth it can go into. So this keeps our mind in a very narrow channel that can lead us to successful practice of Krishna consciousness. And so if you think of the first element of this formula, the sense control, just today in the lecture I heard by Srila Prabhupada, he explains how sense control, it's something that clears our path for liberation. So it's really, and as devotees we know, we don't strive for liberation as such, but we know it's there as a part of the process in order to get attached to the spiritual reality. We need to get detached from the material one, so that liberation is that very process, and sense control is essential to help us with that. And also many times Srila Prabhupada says that the actually human form of life is meant for sense regulation, meant for tapasya. And we also know that the strongest senses are, in that very place also Srila Prabhupada says that the strongest senses are karmindriya, the working senses, and of those tongue is the most notorious, the strongest sense. So we all have this desire to speak, and Srila Prabhupada also has this funny but also sad comparison with the frogs, that he says that human beings, like frogs, always speak something, and he says that the frog, it speaks and it's loud, yes, and it attracts the snake. So by speaking we attract the snake of death. So it leads us to nowhere if we just speak and speak and speak, just pour in our mind into the speech, into the tongue, and and some of us, those in a female body, they have more tendency to do that, and it's a need, it's a big need also. So that's also there. It's harder to regulate. And the other function of the tongue is to taste delicious foods, and I'm sure everyone has experienced COVID at some point of time and experienced the consequences of COVID. And when we fully or partially lose the ability to sense the food, it's so interesting how you eat the same meals you enjoyed before, and maybe you even eat big quantity, but because you cannot fully taste it, you cannot get satisfied. So you realize that the ability to taste, extract the taste from the food is so important for satisfaction, and the tongue is very much driving us, like, oh, you know, taste this, all this tasty food. Fortunately enough, Srila Prabhupada gave us very simple program of chanting the holy name and tasting delicious prasadam to purify our tongues. And this is actually his program to sense control, to control our senses, that we not only we abstain from certain things, but more importantly, we engage positively. Srila Prabhupada often says that, you know, if a child does some activity which is not so desirable, it's not you forbid them to do that. You gave them another positive engagement, and then, you know, they are more happy. They are happy to do that. And maybe sometimes we think, oh, you know, we are not children and, you know, grown-ups, and we know better. But you see, with grown-ups it works as well. We were engaging in some activities which are not fit to be spoken in the temple room maybe before. But, you know, see, like, we are given a better option, the practice of Krishna consciousness, the practice of sadhana bhakti by Srila Prabhupada. And we went for it, so we took it up. And so we are doing we are not just renouncing something, we are doing something positive, and this is an example of how senses are controlled when they engage in a positive way. And when the senses are engaged in that positive, for us, Krishna conscious way, it means also they get purified, and this purifies the mind. And then in the end, we see that our ability to see things like more clear, you know, to take right decisions, it increases when the regulation is there. However, the regulation itself is not enough. You can see that even materialistically minded people, they do a lot of sense regulation. We think, oh, you know, these materialists, like, we act whimsically. But in fact, if you observe those people, even the materialist mind, those who achieve goals, like those who are successful in material way, they're extremely regulated. Sometimes I feel maybe they're even more regulated than, you know, just an average devotee, because this material lust is so strong. You know, they desire something so strongly, it makes them really focused on something, and they are ready to do a lot of tapasya, a lot of austerity to achieve something. So they regulate certain things, and this is not to glorify the materialists, but just to say that the regulation alone is not enough. In fact, just the regulation itself, just some mechanical practice of sadhana bhakti, it will not get us prema. It will not give us the love of God, the desired result. And there are many proofs of that. Just one quote I found from Srila Prabhupada. It's in Bhagavatam, in the first canto, 7th chapter, when the Vyasadeva Samadhi is described. And then Srila Prabhupada says that the revival of the dormant affection or love of Godhead does not depend on the mechanical system of hearing and chanting, but it solely and wholly depends on the causeless mercy of the Lord. When the Lord is fully satisfied with the sincere efforts of the devotee, he may endow him with his loving transcendental service. So it's not enough we just, we got the process, but it's not enough we just follow it mechanically without understanding what we are doing. And of course, there may be questions about this. And for instance, one may think of example of Arjamil, who chanted the name of Narayana, calling for his son, and Vishnadutas immediately came after him, saving from Yamadutas, and he obtained liberation from all his sinful activities by this act of chanting the name of Narayana. And Sachinandan Maharaj, he's conducting a lot of this holy name workshops and retreats. And he said that in the beginning, when he started doing this, he said some very senior sannyasi came from ISKCON came to him, and he said, like, why you're doing this? So look at Jamil. Even without faith, he chanted the holy name just once before leaving the body. So he got liberation. So why, all these holy name workshops? Like, why to think about this so much? Just chant and be happy. But in our practice, we know often it doesn't work like this. So we know that devotees are chanting, and still maybe they're not so happy. And unfortunately, it doesn't come that automatically if only regulation is there and nothing else. And another thing, I think it's also quite straightforward, that if you do something just mechanically and or maybe even out of false ego, or like I'm such a good devotee, I'm so renounced, this and that. And for how long can you do that? If your heart is not really there, how long can you sustain, That's why, unless we really get spiritual experience, that mercy of the Lord, because spiritual experience is not just something that comes in the end. Mercy of the Lord is not just something that comes in the end of life. It's something we can experience every day. And actually, this is something that can sustain, it's the only thing that can sustain us in Krishna consciousness, if we really have that experience. But the experience cannot come from mechanical practice. So the regulation itself is not enough. That's why there is the second part of the Harapophogo, the intelligence, strengthening of the intelligence. And intelligence, or buddhi, it's something which helps us set goals, something which helps us be determined, and something which helps us to decide, whether we do it or not. Is it needed? Is it worth it for us? In that way, it governs the mind, because the mind is maybe whimsical. I like, I don't like, So okay, I don't like. It's too difficult. Okay, I don't do. So this is the mind. But if intelligence is strong, then it can govern the mind and say, okay, maybe you don't like, but you do it, and in the end you'll get a good result. Okay, then the mind can accept some austerity in an easier way. Shishi Lakshmi Bhagavan ki jai. But it's not enough that intelligence is strong, because again, we see a lot of materialists with very strong intelligence, which just, drives them all the way to hell by the kind of ideas they have and the things they do, driven by strong intelligence. The intelligence has to be spiritual, and this is what Srila Prabhupada talks about in the purport. It's in the verse also, in the 343. This deliberate spiritual intelligence. He talks about that. And how we get spiritual intelligence, we try to associate with those who have it. Most and foremost by studying Shastra. This is the main way to keep our intelligence spiritual, to keep it strong. And also now, recently I came with a lot of references on the importance of studying Shastra, and I wanted to share in this regard one of them with you. It's also from the comment to Bhagavad Gita. It's the 10th chapter when the opulences of the Supreme Lord are described. And it's interesting how Srila Prabhupada explains why we need to hear about the opulences of the Lord so much. So he lists some of the opulences, like he says how there are so many great personalities, like the demigods, starting from Brahma, all the Manus, and how Krishna is the forefather of all of those personalities. So imagine the opulence of that person. And then he says, these are some of the opulences of the Supreme Lord. When one is firmly convinced of them, he accepts Krishna with great faith and without any doubt, and he engages in devotional service. All this particular knowledge is required in order to increase one's interest in the loving devotional service of the Lord. One should not neglect to understand fully how great Krishna is. For by knowing the greatness of Krishna, one will be able to be fixed in sincere devotional service. Shri Radha-shyama Sundara ki jai. So here Srila Prabhupada talks about the importance of studying Shastra from the point of view of getting to know the Lord, getting to know the person we want to remember to love again. And how we can do it if we don't know about him, how we can do it if we don't know how great he is. Like Srila Prabhupada often says, they say, yeah, Lord is great, but how great he is, it's not enough just to, like in Turkey, they often say, like, Allah is great, But okay, but what does it mean exactly? Because unless we know the details of these opulences, how can we surrender to him, how can we trust him? So that way, it's really important. And Srila Prabhupada explains that if we study, we read about opulences of the Lord, read about his qualities, his pastimes, then we can get rid of our doubts, and then we can become fixed in our devotional service. When we struggle with anartha nivritti, we want to know, when we can become fixed, when we can become fixed. Srila Prabhupada gives the recipe. You study the opulences of the Lord, you read the Shastra, you become fixed, you become convinced. So that's the importance of intelligence and mind control, and studying Shastra is a big part of it. And there is another aspect of that, which is also related to the intelligence part, because in the very beginning, we heard that above intelligence there is ahankara. There is a false self-identification, thinking ourselves as a separate living entity. So in the conditioned material existence, our self is governed by ahankara, the false identification, but there is also proper identification of ourselves as a spirit soul, and when that identification is proper, then actually everything else becomes easy, because it's a hierarchy, right? So from ahankara to intelligence, to the mind, to the senses. So if I know, at least in theory, if I know that I'm a spirit soul, eternal servant of the Lord, so my intelligence, my decisions, my goals would be driven by that understanding. And therefore, my mind, what I like or what I don't like, will not just already be, difficult, not difficult, I don't like. Okay, so as a servant of the Lord, I like, I don't like. So the mind becomes even like more intelligent. So intelligence really starts dominating the mind, and then the senses, they automatically crave for things which are helping us in Krishna consciousness. Devotees want to take prasadam only, they don't want to take bhoga. They want to talk about Krishna. They want to rather just some mundane topics. And it's interesting when usually before holding class, I ask my husband to give me some sutra about the topic, and I asked him to give me some sutra about mind control. And his sutra was, I'm a spirit soul. And so this is exactly this part when we when we deal with mind control from the point of view of ahankara, from our identification. Because really, if I'm a spirit soul, and we know spirit soul is very small, how can I have these big problems which just occupy my consciousness all the time, And I want to speak only about that, how I was offended, how someone did something to me, how unfair the situation. is, I mean, and as I said, for us, maybe this realization of me being a spirit soul is not there, but intellectually it's there. I mean, intellectually that's there, we are here, you know, so we got that faith, we read, we agree, we don't dispute that. So if the intellectual understanding is there already, so we should use it. We should apply it as much as possible during the day and come back to that every time something is disturbing, every time mind is, you know, taking us different direction. And I think that part of our practice, where it's extremely instrumental, and this is again something we can do every day, it's to go to this idea while chanting, because it's one of those situations when you come one-on-one to the mind with the mind, and oftentimes it appears that actually the mind is not so pure as we thought. You know, maybe chanting is dry, maybe we are bored, sleepy, you know, maybe we're just like contemplating again of something painful which happened, something exciting which is coming. It's like common scenarios, mental scenarios we come across during the chanting. So if we come to the place of chanting from the point of view that I'm a spirit soul, I'm a servant of Vraja-dhama who has forgotten about my original identity, and in some mistaken way ended up here in this material world, which is such a awful place, all the time disturbed by external factors, by other living entities, by my own mind, all is disturbed. So how intimidating it is, you know, to be influenced by all those things and not being able to think about those whom we want to love and we want to serve them, and being disturbed by some other things. Very intimidating situation. And so if we contemplate this, we develop sincere desire to get out of that. And the Lord is so merciful. He came as Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and gave us this very simple process of chanting the holy names, which can help us to get out of all this mess and misery we ended up with. And not only that, it helps us achieve the highest possible good, the highest benefit which is ever given, the prema bhakti, the love of Godhead. So if we try to preach this way to our rebellious mind when chanting, then this can really help us chant in the proper mood, really chant with humility, and this will also guide our activities, our service during the day. So we can do it in a similar mood. But that preaching doesn't work if the previous things are not there, if we don't read, and if we don't regulate the senses. So all these things have to, so this harapofogo, it has to be there. The senses, the intelligence. So they keep the mind in a bay, keep it in a channel, and in this channel it can flow in a peaceful way towards our goal, the love of Godhead. So I think that's what I wanted to share in this regard today. And there are 2 minutes. I wonder if devotees have some corrections, comments, questions. Yeah, and just maybe one last thing. When I was looking in general what Srila Prabhupada has to say about mind control, oftentimes he says it's difficult. Sometimes he says it's impossible, and he says therefore we have to do it. So it's, I'm always impressed with the amount of faith that Srila Prabhupada puts in us, you know. He thinks we are capable of so much more than we think of ourselves. And on the one hand, it may be very heavy sometimes, you know, we think, oh, you know, so fallen, so incapable. But also it's very, very aspirational, you know. It's if someone puts so much trust in us and we feel so much love and so much support from that. So therefore, it's a great fortune that Srila Prabhupada gives us this this direction, and even though it may be feel heavy and achievable at times, most of the time we have a lot of chances to be inspired and practice our mind control in order to achieve this deliberate spiritual intelligence, which Srila Prabhupada calls Krishna consciousness. Thank you very much for your attention. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki Jai. Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki Jai.
Да, он вдохновляет, что пусть невозможно. Да, надо в этом просто постоянно обдумывать. Deliberate.
Spiritual consciousness.
Yeah, this deliberate is a very strong word actually.
I had to look it up in the dictionary to make